A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter?
6 years old. She's blonde. 6 years old.
How long ago was this?
I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's gone.
Does it say who took her?
What?
Does it say who took her?
I don't know. There's a ransom note here.
It's a ransom note?
It says SBTC. Victory. Please.
Okay, what's your name? Are you
Patsy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please.
I'm sending an officer over, okay?
Please.
Do you know how long she's been gone?
No, I don't. Please, we just got out and she's right here. Oh my God, please.
Okay,
Please, there's somebody.
I am, honey.
Please.
Take a deep breath for
Please,
me, okay?
hurry.
Patsy.
It was Christmas 1996 when a panicked phone call was made from the residents of Patsy and John Ramsey to 911 emergency services, stating their daughter, JonBenét, was missing. At the time of this case, the 24-hour news cycle was not as immediate as it is today, and with it being the week between Christmas and New Year, stories were notoriously slow in breaking. However, in the case of a young, white pageant girl from a wealthy family, the news was picked up quickly by the outlets of the day and rapidly traveled to all corners of the globe. What followed became one of the most notorious and unsolved cases of modern times. On the 6th of August 1990 in Atlanta, Georgia, JonBenét was born to Penning. JonBenét started to compete in children's beauty contests from an early age, winning multiple titles, including Little Miss Colorado Sunburst in 1995. Patsy Ramsey, born Patricia Poor in 1956, was a former pageant performer herself, winning Miss West Virginia in 1977. Attending West Virginia University, Patsy graduated with a BA in journalism in 1978. 2 years later, Patsy married John in 1987. John Ramsey, 13 years Patsy's senior, was born in 1943 in Nebraska. In 1966, he joined the Navy as a Civil Engineer Corps officer in the Philippines and Atlanta. Before meeting Patsy, John already had 3 grown-up children with his ex-wife. The marriage ended when John had an affair with a co-worker. In 1992, John's daughter, Beth, was killed in a car accident in Chicago, aged 22. In 1989, Ramsey formed the Advanced Product Group, which later merged with several other companies to become Access Graphics, a computer services company that became a subsidiary of aerospace, defense, and technologies industry giant Lockheed Martin. John was given the role of CEO and president of Access Graphics. After the birth of JonBenét, the family moved to Boulder, Colorado, in 1991 for John's work. The family owned 2 private jets, a yacht and a holiday home in Michigan. Their net worth in 1999 was reported to be $6.4 million. It was Christmas Day in Boulder, and the Ramsey family had spent the evening at the home of their nearby friends, Fleet and Priscilla White, before returning home before 10 p.m., when JonBenét was put to bed. At 5:30 a.m. on the 26th of December, the family awoke to catch a private flight to their second home in Michigan. Patsy went to start breakfast for the family, and a few steps from the bottom of the spiral staircase, she discovered a ransom note written to John and demanding $118,000 for the safe return of his daughter, JonBenét. It also told the Ramseys not to contact the police and that they would be in contact between 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. that day. Patsy called 911 shortly after her discovery and was put through to dispatcher Kimberly Archuleta. Archuleta proceeded to take the details of the crime and dispatched officers to their address, and Archuleta continued to listen. Police arrived at the Ramseys' home, and due to the Christmas holiday, seasoned officers were at home, leaving less experienced officers to deal with the apparent kidnapping. In the meantime, the Ramseys called their friends, the Whites, to help with the search for JonBenét. They arrived shortly after the police and were allowed to enter the house. At around 7:30 a.m., John left the living room to secure the ransom money for the kidnappers. At 10 a.m., the police secured JonBenét. And at around the same time, the FBI arrived to wiretap the Ramseys' phone. At this point, the window of time the kidnappers had claimed they would call had been and gone. The FBI left the scene shortly after but left an additional officer with the Ramseys. Detective Linda Orant from Boulder Police Department suggested that John kept himself busy by searching the house. John and Fleet White eventually found JonBenét in the basement just after 1 p.m. She was wrapped in a blanket, with duct tape over her mouth and a garrote tied around her neck with a paintbrush that had been used for leverage. 6-year-old JonBenét was dead. John carried her body upstairs and placed her on the floor. The police subsequently moved her body to a sofa where she remained until she was taken away by the coroner at around 8 p.m. The coroner concluded that JonBenét was killed by ligature strangulation and craniocerebral injuries. She had multiple abrasions to her neck, cheek, legs, and other body parts. She also noted that there was blood in JonBenét's underwear. The Ramseys' home in Boulder was a 7,000 square foot, 4-story home, with 5 bedrooms, multiple staircases and a large basement that spanned the underneath of the house. The basement was partitioned into several smaller rooms. A brand new train set was built on a table in its own space, and the children often played down there. It was also used for storage, filled with old paint cans, arts and crafts, and decorations. There was a room to the northwest of the basement with a window. With a previously broken window pane, the pane was never fixed because John often locked himself out of the house, and this was an easy way in. The window is how police believe the kidnappers gained entry to the property. A suitcase was positioned under the window, which was thought to have helped the intruders get back out of the window. JonBenét was found in the room used as a wine cellar on the other side of the basement. This room was windowless and had one door in and out. JonBenét was strangled and hit in the head with an unidentifiable object. While the murder weapon has never been found, a few objects have been called up for debate. A metal baseball bat was found by the butler door later on in the search, but this could have been placed there by one of the staff on the property. Hound on JonBenét's head. Over the years, various people have confessed to the murder of JonBenét Ramsey. Gary Olivier is a convicted pedophile, currently serving a 10-year sentence in Colorado for possession of child pornography. He called a former classmate on the 26th of December, stating he'd hurt a little girl. The friend said, "I tried to get more information out of him. I immediately called the Boulder Police Department what he had told me just days earlier. They didn't get back to me. 3 months later I called the police again to find out what was going on in its investigation of Gary, but instead I was sent to a police answering machine set up for tips on the JonBenét case. I left a message on the recorded line and again I never heard back from investigators." Another suspect was John Carr, a teacher living in Thailand. Carr confessed to killing JonBenét in 2006, and at the time, he was also connected with child pornography charges in America. He was extradited back to the US, but there was no evidence linking him to the crime. It was later acknowledged that if he hadn't confessed, he might have ended up. Years have passed, and there seems to be no clear conclusion to her death. Or is there? Many theories point to the family when it comes to JonBenét's death. A lot of ideas have the father, John, pegged as the killer. John claims he carried JonBenét from the car to her bedroom the night before, yet there was no DNA from him or anyone else in the family on her clothing. Detective Orant claimed he was acting strangely and even took the time to read his mail while the police were still told John to search the house again from top to bottom. To give him something to do. Instead, he started at the bottom of the house, where he and Fleet White immediately found JonBenét's body in the basement. Orant also describes in the same interview that she mentally counted the bullets left in her gun, ready to offload them, because she was convinced John was the killer. According to Fleet White, John cried out to him prior to turning on the light to see JonBenét in the wine cellar. That room had previously been searched, so, unsurprisingly, Fleet White should be suspicious. Some theories point to the brother, Burke. Patsy may have taken JonBenét to the bathroom before going to bed, and afterwards, JonBenét went back downstairs to get a snack, where her brother was already eating. There was a piece of the undigested fruit in JonBenét's stomach, found during her autopsy, and a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table, with Burke's bowl, and in frustration, he lashed out. Patsy was training her daughter JonBenét in pageantry, and she wanted her not just to take part but to win. According to one neighbor, who used to photograph the family, Patsy even bleached JonBenét's hair. The mother was so focused on pageantry that it took up all of her attention. Attention Burke was now being deprived of. When JonBenét was younger, Burke had hit his sister in the face with which required plastic surgery. JonBenét had also visited the doctor 37 times that year. Alternatively, it may have been Patsy who snapped. JonBenét had issues with wetting the bed, and Patsy claimed she would still wake up in the middle of the night with wet sheets. The maid once found a grapefruit-sized ball of feces in JonBenét's bed. Patsy may have accidentally hurt her daughter for another bedwetting incident, not realizing how much damage she had done. Police noted that she was in the same clothes from the previous night, which was unusual for the pageant queen. Patsy's paintbrush from her craft area was also used to secure the garrote around JonBenét's neck. The ransom note was around 370 words in length and was written on 3 pages of a legal pad with a Sharpie pen, both of which were found to faction, and signed Victory. SBTC, the note is the most critiqued pieces of evidence from the case, partly due to its length but also its content. In a 2016 CBS documentary, The Case of JonBenét Ramsey, 3 experts rewrote the 3-page ransom note, and it took all of them over 20 minutes just to copy the text. Meaning the kidnappers would have spent at least 20 minutes writing the letter in the Ramseys' home. They also found them, as the stationery belonged to the Ramseys. On the pad, there were clear indentations where additional ransom notes had been started and rejected. During the CBS documentary, Jim Fitzgerald, a forensic linguist, dissected the note and created a profile of the author. Despite the letter being written by a small foreign faction, the author's writing ability was high. Numerous difficult words were spelt correctly, and he concluded that the author's native language was English. He also put the writer aged over 30 due to the lack of slang in the note. He also believed the author was female. He gave 6 examples of maternalistic language used throughout the note, "when you get home," and Doonla phrases used in the Ramseys' Christmas newsletter. The amount of money the kidnappers asked for is also precise. The author demanded $118,000, which was the exact figure that John received for his annual bonus that year. The kidnappers had seemingly done their research, they knew how to get into the property and knew where to find JonBenét in the house, so in theory, they would also understand that the Ramseys could get hold of more money. The kidnappers said they'd call between 8 to 10 a.m. on the 26th, but they never did the time by the parents, which Detective Ornt found very odd. The note also told the Ramseys not to call the police, which they did immediately. The ransom note was signed Victory. S.B.T.C., which has an unprecedented number of theories around it. Some believe it stands for "saved by the cross," a religious quote referring to Christ's sacrifice on the cross meant we have victory over death. It may also be a random phrase created by the kidnappers. There are no signs of forced entry into the basement. There were dust and spiderwebs on the window that were left undisturbed. In the CBS documentary, the producers built basement and kitchen replicas of the Ramseys' house. The show included one of the hosts' attempt to climb through the window without unsettling the debris, which was impossible in the reconstruction. There were also no fingerprints found on or around the area. There was also a suitcase underneath the window that was not customarily placed there. It had little debris on it, and during the autopsy, the coroner found strange marks on JonBenét's body that looked like marks from a taser. There is a theory that JonBenét's attacker stunned her to subdue her, but no taser was ever found. However, a piece of train track from the set in the basement was compared to the distance of the marks, and that fit the 2 patterns well. Additionally, the coroner found blood in JonBenét's underwear. They also found DNA. There was evidence that JonBenét's indicative of sexual abuse. Other supposed proof of sexual abuse includes the bedwetting and soiling, both of which JonBenét experienced. However, forensic scientist Dr. Henry Lee tested a pair of store-bought underwear, and the results came back positive for DNA trace evidence. This showed that the DNA found on JonBenét's underwear could have come from the manufacturing process rather than anything more sinister. The head injury JonBenét sustained during her attack did not break the skin, so the coroner did not realize the significant blow to her head until an internal inspection had occurred. The head wound showed remarkable similarities to a flashlight found on the Ramseys' kitchen counter. There is also the case of the baseball bat, but John Ramsey was adamant that the bat did not belong to their family, despite being found in the property. Evidence rules out an axe behind it. Many of the Ramseys' neighbors report lights on in the house on Christmas night and early the following day. There were also reports of a missing safety light on the property. Another neighbor heard a scream between midnight and 2 a.m. Further neighborhood reports can be found here. There are multiple, differing accounts. JonBenét's death was the first murder in Boulder that year. The officers who arrived at the house on the morning of JonBenét's It took the officers 4 hours to seal off JonBenét's bedroom, and when the whites arrived to help with the search, they were let into the house immediately, without regard for the contamination of the scene. Friends and a victim's advocate group kept themselves busy tidying and cleaning up the house, making themselves useful meanwhile removing any evidence that may have helped police. When JonBenét was brought up from the basement, John Ramsey had already removed the tape over her mouth and had attempted to remove her wrist restraints. An officer then moved JonBenét from the floor to a sofa, which meant the body had been moved twice before the coroner and forensics arrived. The police had no control over the situation, and the case had problems from the start. After 24 years, there are multiple theories, suspects, murder weapons, and pieces of evidence that lead nowhere, in the case of JonBenét Ramsey. There are also many unanswered questions with this case. Which came first, the strangulation or the head injury? Why didn't District Attorney Alex Hunter help, rather than hinder, the investigative people? Investigated around 140 potential suspects and logged about 1,400 items of evidence. So why hasn't it been solved? Steve Thomas, former Boulder police detective, believes it is politics. Others say it was an opportunistic sexual predator, and some say it is a cover-up as the result of a tragic accident. After JonBenét died, the family moved back to Atlanta, Georgia. Burke attended Purdue University. He went on to work in the technology industry, and now lives a quiet life. John Ramsey 2006 from ovarian cancer and currently resides in Michigan with his third wife. It is unlikely that this case will ever be solved due to the number of theories, people involved and inadequate police work at the scene. Whatever the truth, it will likely die with the person or people who committed it. After all this time, the JonBenét Ramsey case is still open and remains unsolved. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and wish to see more, click the subscribe button alongside with the notification bell. You can also like the video and comment to let us know about your thought on this case as well as if you want us to cover any other one.